Welcome, everyone. I'm Barbara Etienne for Project Kin, and I'm delighted to welcome all of you to our Kathy's Corner, our longest standing regular program featuring Kathy Stone, a professional photo manager with decades of experience working with the photo collections of some of the most esteemed families in the Canadian Rocky Mountain West. And now she has turned her talent and focus to her own family collection. And in the process, shared with us month after month a little of her own process, which you'll find in a blog post about the 8 steps from tubs of stuff to tales of yore in ordered collections, how she's done that. Those 8 posts are all available on our site, or that single post covering those 8 steps, and then the recordings of her programs covering each of those 8 steps are all on our site under Kathy's Corner. Today and through beginning in 2024, we're covering a broader view of your work, her work in process. And from here, let me defer to my good friend, the esteemed Kathy Stone, to take over.
Wow, quite the
introduction.
Quite the introduction. Thank you. Yeah, I just decided I needed to figure out how to work my PowerPoint again. Do we have a screen? Oh, I'm presenting my screen. Oh, it's the right one. Yay. Okay. So welcome, as Barbara said, this is Kathy's Corner. And we talked long and hard at the beginning of the year about whether or not, just to repeat what I taught last year in all the in the Kathy's Corner sessions. And we thought, you know what? That's probably good for new people, but the recordings are there and we hope you'll watch them if you're new. And please feel free at any time to ask a question, even if it's not what we're talking about or that day. We want to help you this year. We want to help people who are really digging into that photo mess and making some sense out of it, working on projects and doing any of that kind of work, because sometimes we need a little help to do that. So, okay, this is where Kathy gets confused and can't figure out how to advance her slides. I think I need this screen. There we go. Did we change? So are you seeing something that says sorting a mess? Hello?
Yes, we're all on mute.
I was like, okay, that didn't work well at all because I lost everybody. So I thought what I'd do now is we're going to talk about stories in a bit. And also any questions you have of the burning questions that you need answers to. What I wanted to talk a little bit, give you a tip, and I thought, well, maybe this would be a good thing to do. Every Kathy's Corner, I'll give you one of my tips on how I've sorted things both as a professional, and I'm still doing it with my own personal stuff. So as we talk about, we're trying to go from those tubs and boxes of photos or the digital folders that you might have on your computer, which not being as good of a visual necessarily as a box full of photos. And I think that photo on top qualifies as a mess. In my books, it did when I had to sort it all out. So there's a lot of different ways you can go through things to make it easier on yourself when you're sorting, because to start sorting this box, you can't really tell partly because it was designed that way so you couldn't really see faces, but obviously there is no order to that box. This is not a bunch of envelopes where everything is together. This is a whole bunch of different times and all in a big mess. So I thought we'll give you a couple organizing tips. One of the ones that we do as photo managers, and I've actually done this with some of my own pictures because it's helped me a lot. Hang on, I'm changing my slide again. Okay, there we go. Is to sort by size first. It's a really fast pass at the pictures because if you look there, those are the reverse sides of photos, and we sort by upside down. One, you're less distracted by what's in the pictures. And sometimes you get too distracted with that. And also if you're trying to pile things on a table by things you think might go together, you suddenly need a very large table. So if you start, because if you look on the left, there's a photo postcard. The other side of that is actually a picture. There's a photo postcard. Well, it's most likely not any way related to any of those other sizes of photos. And so we start off just by piling them up by size and shape, or obviously you could apply this to other media. If you've got VHS tapes, you're going to sort those in a pile. And if you've got Super 8 tapes, if you've got film reels, you're going to sort those up out into those kind of things, because chances are they have similar time frames. The same thing with slides. There's actually different sizes of slides, and they're going to, if you have a slide that's some of them in there have a very tiny frame and a bigger image, it probably isn't the same batch of stuff that went with the same size square slides, but it might have a smaller image. Probably not the same thing. So this is one of the ways we found that works wonders for fast sorting of photos. And then once you get them in piles, you can then grab a pile that are all the same size and start looking for other clues. Maybe that's the time you flip them over, or look at things. And I didn't grab a picture there, sorry. I thought I had one with a decal edge. If you're familiar with older photos, particularly square, I also see this bad, oh yeah, I guess that's sort of square. No square ones in there. Square photos are very common from earlier days, but for a long period of time, they had decal edges. And that decal edges, you know what I mean? Like the little jiggy-jaggy edges. Okay, that's the technical term, jiggy-jaggy edges. People had those photos in their collections, but not all the decals are the same. And there's actually, which I'll share either in the recording, or there's a website where you can look up what approximate period of time the different decal edges came from, or which manufacturer used which type of decal edge, which can also be clues for something that I'm not really talking about today, but for sorting things, also trying to put dates to stuff. The other thing, so the edges, the other things are, there's dates on the back or the front. So just remember, with your looking at dates, that would be the date developed. So think about if, and it's easy for us, I know we have a few people from Michigan too, and probably for you as well. It's easy for me to look at a picture and go, there's a big pile of snow in that picture. That's not a picture from July. Or conversely, it's bright and sunny and there's green grass. Again, that isn't going to be a December photo, a rare occasion. Whereas if you live somewhere, I was applying that to a family collection that from Texas, and I did a little bit of it, and then I went, oh, wait, yes, that's not going to work here, because it could be bright green trees, everything in the middle of winter, you know, what I would consider winter. But if you are somewhere where the climate changes, then that's another potential clue for batching things. And I think Barbara put these in batches so you keep the context in place for each batch. So all photos from a wedding came from a certain person. That's another way to do that. Mention the dates. The other thing you could see on there, I changed my slides and I took the good ones out. I'll have to post them, and I'll throw some up in the some of these pictures. But if you see, there's a couple there that have like almost like a logo, and it's a combination of the date and the I think the dates are in there, and also like a date taken, but also who developed them. And so several of these ones that were in my collection were developed in a place called Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And I knew that that one then meant these belonged to my grandparents, because that probably was the closest place to where they lived, where you could get a picture developed. And my uncle used to drive Greyhound bus back in the day for many, many years. And he was on a run that included Saskatchewan. So I would suspect that Lloyd would have taken the pictures and of the family, and so that's where those were developed. There's all sorts of them. There's some in the States. There's a Fox photo with a little Fox logo. There's all kinds of different logos, but that can be another clue as to which pictures go together. And particularly when you remember, like, the way we take pictures now, like I'm looking at my pictures from the 90s, and I'll have like an entire roll of 24 that'll all be my kid's birthday party. That's easy. But back before that, like when I look back at the photos from my day or my time, there might be almost a year on one roll of film, because we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't take a ton of photos. So there might be a birthday, there might be Christmas. So looking at the backs can be really helpful. Also, if you notice, some of them have numbers. They look like they were stamped on. Their big one in the middle says 615. Those numbers are actually a roll number. And quite often you can match photos that go together by matching those numbers together. So another way just to start putting all the photos together. And then, of course, when you flip them over, and there's glitches. This is no system in it for, if I had a perfect organizing system, I'd be selling it somewhere. There's no guaranteed thing. People who tended to reprint pictures kind of mess you up with that because the backs can be different. But look for clues, the physical clues, just to keep you going. And it makes it quicker when you're dealing with a big mess. Any comments or questions on that?
You know, as you were describing that, Kathy, I immediately was thinking of a little mnemonic like who, what, when, where, why, how, to tell me what, to remind me to go think of a different way if I'm trying to figure out who is in this photo. I'm not sure quite how that applies, but invariably that kind of thing can, you know, boil it down.
Yeah. Indeed. Oh, welcome, Marilyn. Any other questions so far? Or questions about anything to do? I'm going to move on to my next, to the fun part in a minute. But if you have any other questions, go ahead. You can type them in the chat if you don't want to come off mute. If you want to tell us where you are with your project, if you've had a big win. I've had a big win because I've finished off, and they actually showed up today in my my online account. I finished digitizing all of the photos from this doesn't sound like a lot, but it was a lot. 1996 when my twins were born to 2006 when I got a digital camera. And so I am pretty excited about that. I have more work to do now because I got to change. I need to change the dates because obviously they've all come in with the date of 2024 or 2023 when they were done. But I'm pretty happy, and I've managed to empty out several boxes of duplicates and triplicates. So in that, one of our goals of trying to get rid of stuff, that's been a big win for me, is to be able to just throw out those boxes of photos. I'm going to keep the negatives and one set of photos, and I'm going to mark on the physical photos, these have been scanned, and feel free to throw them away. I'm not going to throw them away yet. Partly, I'm lucky my kids want this stuff. And right now I don't have to move, but if some point I need to downsize, then they might get thrown out sooner rather than later. But that's what I've been up to.
While you're hitting on that classic point, Kathy, I wonder if you might talk a little bit about you just said, now I have to correct all the dates because the dates are based on when they were scanned. So that's a classic, and the topic of metadata can lead down its own rabbit hole. But short of that, can you give kind of a high level of what you do next?
Well, what I'm doing next is I have a program that will allow me to bulk change dates. So for example, and because these are from the 90s and they're my kids, so I can take the 2 rolls of film from the birthday and mark them all with the day of their birthday. I'm not going to worry about whether the birthday party was the day before or the day after, anything like that. I'm going to put the date on, because if down the road someone's looking for birthday pictures, you're going to put the date in. You're going to put November 10th, 1996 in. You're not going to check all around that. So that's my next step, is to, and also when negatives get scanned, they're not necessarily in the right order. They're kind of, some of them are mixed up, and I've sent them away to be scanned. So they weren't scanned. Like I can't see, oh, this is the roll of 24 in the exact order. So I'm going to go back through and put them in the correct order and then fix the dates. And then I will probably, my method is to put the date in the title too of the photo. Like that's my primary, I organize chronologically and then split that into by people with tags, but I will rename the photo with the date, and I use, as we talked with metadata and Caroline, I use year, month, day. Does it matter? Can we argue to use something else? If you don't use the year first, your photos are not going to be in any order when a program sorts them. Like Windows is going to sorts them numerically. So you're 2020, you're going to get them all jumbled up. The same as if you don't. Important thing is to be consistent with what you use. That's the most important thing. I like year, month, day, because that's how I'm a PC user. That's how Windows Explorer organizes stuff if I decide to sort by date. Why put the date in the name if I'm going to redate them? Just in case at some point moving things around that date gets lost out of the metadata. The date will go into what we call the metadata, or the information about the photo. And sometimes that information can get lost. It can get stripped, but which we got to talk some, not today, but another day, Barbara, we should talk about different software programs and what to look for that might be a good topic again for another Kathy's Corner, but what to look for in a software program. Here we're not pushing one or another. As Barbara says, we're agnostic towards software programs, but we can tell you what you should look for and to decide what program is good for you. So, and probably give you a myriad of suggestions of what you might want to use depending on platforms and things. So, but some different programs, some online storage, if you put your pictures up there and you don't download them the right way, it takes off all your hard work that you did writing descriptions. So you don't want that. So that's why I want that title, and I'll put either a name or an event. It'll depend on what the picture's of in that title. Just so that, but you don't want your titles to be, you don't want the whole description written in the title, because it'll be very hard to look at your picture afterwards. So that's kind of how I'll do that going forward. Marilyn asked if there's a handout. Did we have a handout of? Oh, you're muted, Barbara.
You'll get these details in the recording.
Yes.
We'll sort of a post out. We need a word for that.
Just make that. Okay, very good. So any other questions?
Just to clarify one thing, the recordings are all available on the Project Kin, to Project Kin members. All you got to do is drop your email address. And that is separate from signing up for this event. So if that's all new to you, just pop over to projectkin.org. I'll get that link in here in a second. And then the emails will go out after that to all members. And we record all sessions, give it to all members, and it's always free.
Yeah. And you can always post questions for Marilyn, or anyone can post questions under the recordings, the things that occur to you after. Feel free to post them. Barbara and I will get notices and I'll answer them. So you can always ask questions after. So any other comments or questions? Okay. Hang on. Now we'll go to the good part. So we talked about right from the very beginning, and the very first Kathy's Corner we talked about how my hope is to help you get to the good part, and that's talking about stories. And I'm going to read this because I wrote a couple notes, and so I wouldn't forget. We're going to talk about telling stories, and stories for us at Project Kin are the most important part of what we're doing with our photos. And to me, they are the most important thing, because even though the old saying is a picture tells a, you're muted again, Barbara. You know what I'm trying to say?
Worth 1,000 words.
A picture's worth 1,000 words. I'm gonna have to put that on a note above my computer too. I mess that up every time. You'd think I didn't do this for a living. But I don't agree with that. I think there's so many layers of things in a picture, and layers and stories. And so this is a recent picture. I think I showed this to Barbara the other day. And I don't know if this is big enough on your screens. Probably not if you're on a phone, but it's a picture of, so if I talk about the basics, it's me. I'm the one in the middle with the beard and the jean jacket on. And the little girl to my left is my cousin Maureen, and she's wearing what you'd think is kind of an odd outfit, like me. And then the little fellow on the right is my other cousin. It's her brother. I'm an only child. These two are my brothers and sisters for my life. They're my kids' uncles and aunt, and they've lived with us at various times in our life. And we spent so much time together that they are my brothers and sisters. And the little guy, so that's the who, that's the what is. This is from Edmonton. I'm going to guess sometime in the 60s, although I'm pretty tall there, maybe early 70s. But I can find that information out because it was Edmonton Klondike Days. It was the summer celebration that we had. And what it did was it celebrated. Edmonton is north of where I live in Calgary, in Canada, in Alberta, and it was on the way to the Klondike Gold Rush in Alaska. And so they developed their summer fair around with the theme of Klondike Days. So everybody used to dress up. So my cousin is in the big dresses, and I have pictures of me when I was younger where I'd be wearing the big long dresses, like from the Klondike era. The men wore top hats and vests and suits and with little pocket watches and everything. And there was a promenade. So this picture was taken at the promenade and in about that date. And like I said, I have to look up the date. So I've told you who, and I've told you why we were dressed that way. But there's so many layers to pictures. And so for me, yesterday was the 5th anniversary of that little guy passing. He passed away from colon cancer, and I couldn't find this picture. I made him a baby book. He got to see his baby book before he passed. But I knew this photograph existed in my mind, but I couldn't find it. And I was so choked. And I went through boxes. I found my high school yearbooks in boxes in my garage. I found a pet rock in there, for those of you of a certain age. My pet rock was there. All this stuff. I found other pictures. I could not find this picture. And it was weighing on me because I just loved that picture. And so about a month ago, I was looking in a box that had a whole bunch of stuff of my own kids' pictures in it. And there was a little index card with a thing that said old photos behind it. And I went, what is that? And why is it in this box of my kids' school pictures? And I looked behind it, and there were a few old pictures, and this was one of them. So I was so happy to find it. It was so important to me because these were fun events that we went to, and he's holding my hand. And I wrote yesterday on Facebook, I'm going to hold that hand in my heart forever, because that was so hard to lose him. What do I remember about that moment is I had my little brother and sister walking in the promenade with me. I'm assuming we had adults at that age somewhere, but just that we had all those memories together. And that one picture I was looking for it so much, and I was so happy to find it. So that's so what do I think about? So these are some questions that get in deeper layers to stories. What change was happening at the moment? Well, Klondike Days doesn't exist anymore. That's partly why it was important too then. What do I remember about it, or what was I told? I remember that there was food stands there. There was music playing. It was just a lot of fun. It was a thing you looked forward to do every year, and to be able to do it with your family, because I have other pictures taken different times. I have him when he was a baby with all of us dressed up, and somebody's just carrying him. But I wanted this picture, and I was so happy when I found it. So, and I'm hoping the date's written on the back of it. It's one of the last, it went in with the last batch of digitization, but I had to take a picture of it first just in case. So that's the whole essence of, to me, what's important and what we're doing here is, will I write that much of a story on every single picture? Absolutely not. Will some of my pictures just have the basics, the who, what, where, when? Absolutely. But pictures that to me represent a time in life and family are the ones I'm going to write the story about. The other layer of story would be to add to it that why I'm dressed that way is one of the sort of mascot of Klondike Days was a guy named Klondike Mike, who was a real man who walked around with a donkey, dressed similar to that. He had a big, huge beard, and he was one of the characters that would be part of it, because they do things like the fake gunfights and things on the street and stuff. And all the businesses would paint elaborate wince. More is coming back to me. And so pick a picture so I can tell all about that whole thing that happened from one picture. And that's the layers of the story that's important, that I think are important to me. The other thing too we want to talk about today is a bit, objects are a very important part of the story too. It's not just our photos and pieces of memorabilia. And for me in this day and age, objects are becoming even more important because we're in the day of we're in the time of minimalism. That's what I'm trying to spit out. Minimalism, downsizing, the Marie Kondo movement, Swedish death cleaning, where we're encouraged to get rid of things and throw them all away. And I'm fully of the belief that if you've got a sock drawer that's overflowing, you need to clean that out and donate those socks, get rid of the socks. If you've got 6 paint rollers in the garage, maybe you only need 2 or 3. Maybe you can get rid of some of that stuff. But some things are a part of our legacy and a part of our history that we need to tell the stories behind. And I just grabbed this picture because this is fresh in my mind, given the anniversary yesterday and everything else. But I've done this. I've talked about different. Barbara mentioned one. My mom passed away quite a while ago now. I never remember. It's one of those things you wipe out of your memory, but it's been a while. And so she had a sweatshirt my cousin made for her that had a picture of the one there in the goofy hat, Maureen's daughter and son, with my 2 boys when my boys were they were about 1 or 2. So her kids would have been, in the 9-10 age. And she had this great picture she took and she put it on a sweatshirt for my mom. And I still, my mom lived with us before she ended up in the nursing home with her dementia. But I still have a lot of her stuff in the house and I'm gradually getting rid of it. But I took a picture of that sweatshirt and I talked about it on another, I think that was the session we did with Karen Ray, if I remember, who's a wonderful person. If you need help writing a memoir, Karen Ray, she's the one to talk to. But she asked us to do a little exercise, and I'm going to throw this out there to you, to take a few minutes and think about something that you have, a possession, and just jot down the story behind it, the who, the what, the where, the why, and most importantly, why would you keep it? So I'm going to actually be quiet and give you some time to do that. So if you could grab an object, I put that in the, I was trying to send a message out, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. So I put that in the comments on Kathy's Corner on Substack. So, but I don't know if anybody saw it. But even if you don't have the object handy, if you can just think about it. And that was Karen's instruction. She said, an object, tell the story behind it, the who, the what, the where, and the why. But most importantly, not just why was the object there, but why is it important to you? What story does it tell? Because a lot of those objects tell stories. And we can do what I did with this. I let that sweatshirt go because I took a photograph of it. And I put that photograph with the actual photograph that was taken and told that story. And so that, and this is a good way too to get, because the overwhelmingness of all this stuff we have can get us discouraged at some point. But if you take a few minutes every day and you grab one picture and you write that story down and attach it to that photo, and then the next day you do another one, or maybe someday you're like, oh, I'm excited now, I'll do 2 or 3. But if we look at things in smaller groups, or as we've talked a lot about as projects, it makes this so much easier. So I'm going to be quiet now and let you all think about an object and write a little story. And then if anybody wants to share their story, you can do that. We don't need me up there anymore. There we go. Marcy just asked in the chat if we can share a photograph, and absolutely.
Just use that to the left of the hand is a box with an arrow. Tap on the box with an arrow.
You're muted there again, Marcy. I'm doing really good at not interrupting so far. I'm quiet.
I'm still learning.
I'm giving you time to write those stories. Oh, there, Marcy's got one to share with us.
You have to hide your, pull out the tab and hide it if you're sharing the whole screen. So put your mouse down to right where that AJMXIO number is. Move your mouse up. There you go. Oh. Okay, so where it says stop presenting, go to the next to the right of that, it says ignore. No, don't hit that. There you go. Click that one. Oh. Now move your mouse all the way to the top. This is expected. There you go. See where that letter is? Tap there where the lock is. Tap there and drag it down. Oh, that's my mouse. Move your mouse down a little bit. That's it. Oh, I see. That's your browser window. So tap to the left somewhere outside. There you go. Oh, right there. Tap and drag. We're just trying to make it move. Is this in a that's right. You turn on your microphone. There you go. The one up, above, up. That's the presentation. Go up one, and you'll hit the microphone so you can turn your microphone back on. No, that's for the presentation. The presentation creates a separate entity. Okay, we don't have to do that. So what's happening is that when you share your screen and your screen has in front of it the whole Google Meet, it starts cascading. So that's all that's happening here. And you can go to a different tab. If you have a different tab open. So you're looking in Safari. See where the window is up above? I can't see what that says. Okay, there you go. Good job. Oh, your microphone's off. Good job.
Yeah, it is. I'm just, I'm trying to figure out how to share an iPhoto. So.
Of an iPhoto. So on a Mac, go to the Command tab, hit Command tab. First, hold a command down, the Command button, hold that down, and then the Tab button, and you'll be able to rotate through the different apps. There you go. See, one more over, stop. That's it.
There.
Bingo.
Woohoo.
Do you want me to tell you the little story about, well,
absolutely.
Both my maternal grandmother, paternal grandmother, and her sister, my great aunt, had the same cookbook. And my mother learned to cook side by side with my paternal grandmother. They were very good friends, which is really, so sweet, I think, in families. And she taught her everything. She taught her to cook. She didn't know how before. Her mother was a professional person. She was a teacher and on the go. And my mother took this cookbook when my grandmother died, and she cooked from it a lot in my growing up. But I ended up with my aunt's copy, and you can see the frayed edges, that it's coming apart and so on. I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
But it was printed in, it was reprinted, this one, in 1949. It actually goes back to the 30s. And it has things in it like a cake of when you're doing bread, yeast, a cake of yeast.
Mm.
So when I'm looking at something, I'm going, okay, I have to convert that to
That's a lot of
modern
yeast.
day. Yeah, and it's still in my cupboard. I still use it, especially for the shortbread recipe.
Ah,
Oh,
This
I've
lady
had
was a Canadian author,
ah,
Jessie Reed.
cool.
wow. Might have you share that shortbread recipe.
Yeah.
I could, yeah. Now I've got to close this one.
That's fine. That will close the window in. Yeah, now you want to get over to the. I can actually undo the share. There we go. That's it. Oh yeah,
Neat.
you got it.
Yep.
That's it. Now stop presenting. The blue button.
There we go.
Yay! Well
Thank
done.
you. Good job. And we learned Google Meet stuff too.
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Anybody else have their object and a story to tell, or a photo and a story to tell?
Oh, I'll bite.
Okay. Thank you.
So my story to tell is, I think you can see that.
Yeah.
It's a little jar, a little glass, and it's enamel, and it was a gift that a boss gave to me in my first job, my second boss in the first job. The first boss I went to go work for was absolutely lovely. I was so disappointed when he moved on. So I worked for the Japanese consulate in San Francisco when I graduated from grad school. And the first San Francisco is a plum choice for the Japanese State Department, the foreign ministry, for when they assign people. And so the first guy was this incredible second generation, ministry guy. Went on to higher up things. She was I believe, the first woman who was a career post in the Japanese Foreign Service, and at the end of her career, and this was the 80s, so she had entered the Foreign Service in Japan in, I don't know, the 60s, probably the 60s, and she had always lived single her whole life. She was in her probably late 60s at the time, and she went away on a trip and came back and brought me this as a little gift. These are, this was, again, the early 80s, about 1983, something like that. And these kinds of things could be found in Hong Kong pretty easily. It's a lacquer, and so-called cinnabar lacquer, which is a red lacquer on an enamel base, brass enamel base. So, it's not a precious object, despite the $400 prices on eBay. That's not right. But it's very nice. And I've had it with me ever since. Any office I ever work in, any office space, it is one of my desk toys. And to me, the joy of a desk toy like that is that it reminds me of something generous, someone I cared about and respected a long time ago, who now must be gone by now. She was, like I said, in her late 60s and then early 80s. But was just such a lovely and remarkable person, Ino-san. And I just feel so special to have been touched by her so early in my career. There you go.
Yeah.
Very simple story. And I've never written that down, and come to think of it, I don't know who I've ever told, but it's just something that's always sort of sitting there. And it's an example of something that I would, when I'm gone, love that my kids would be able to know, much as I have some of these objects that I have no idea what this is. That was my mother's, well, actually, I have done a little web research. The web tells you things you could never know otherwise. It's a blown glass from the Isle of Man. But when did she receive it? Why did she have it? Why was it on her desk? Why was it important to her? So the what is much easier to figure out these days with a little magic of the internet. But the why is always harder.
Anyone else? You don't have to. It won't make you. I think another important thing, and please, if you want to share, just take your mute off and I'll call your name out. The other important thing, I think, with what you shared, Barbara, about that item, and you said you've never written down, probably never even really told, your kids don't know what it is. And so when it comes to that moment when you're trying to clean stuff out, if you've never been told, I was lucky as in that my mother told me what quite a few things are, because there wasn't a lot, but we have things there. There's a rifle pin that my grandmother was given when my great uncle was killed in World War I. This is what you got when your kid got killed. No, it was a sister. No, so it would have been my great great grandmother, and then my grandmother, his sister, had it. So that opens that whole story up with that. But it also doesn't mean that there's all these things. I have another one I was going to tell the story about. I have a box of World War II medals, and they belonged to a friend of my aunt and uncle who had no children. But they're sitting in a box and they're not ours. Like, they have this other guy's name on them. And so, but the story behind them is that my grandfather had the same medals, and they were given to a little guy in the picture. And for him, because he was the boy. And the older boys were probably, I don't know how he got it, because he was like the youngest grandson. Maybe that's how they picked youngest grandson at that point in time. So he got grandpa's medals and he had them framed. But my aunt felt bad because at that point she knew I collected all sorts of things, which is another whole issue about downsizing. But my father collected military stuff, and he had given me some stuff, and so she said she thought they didn't know Bill had passed away, and they didn't know what to do with his medals, and so she gave them to me so that I would have the same medals that my grandfather had. Now, my wonderful niece, my cousin's daughter, gave me the framed set of my grandpa's medals after my little brother there passed. So I'm thinking, what should I do with them? Because so a lot of those things too is I may take pictures of them and tell the story, because it's a cool story. And it memorializes Bill, whose medals they were, who had no family. But I'll probably donate them to a museum. And that's another thing to think about with all these things we have. And surprisingly, because somebody goes, oh, well, why would a museum want my stuff? I'm not anybody. But a lot of our things represent something else. They have more of a story behind them. And I think that's what's really important about telling the stories behind stuff. I threw a link in there for Show and Tales, Marty McNabb. I think Marty joined us for some of the old Ponga things. Marty's wonderful. She's a family historian, started off as a photo organizer years back, and now what she does is hosts storytelling workshops in a whole variety of communities. But she started out a podcast with video clippings of all these various ones. We did quite a few during COVID. And there's one there if you want to look. I don't know if you know who Matt Paxton is. If you remember the show Hoarders, and now he does Legacy List. So Matt actually was on one of those on one of those Show and Tales, and shared a story about, I believe his was about a Christmas ornament that was really important to him. And I think about that, and I think I need to do that because all the ornaments we have are special. We don't have the ornament ball, the fancy balls that all match that we bought at the decorator store. We have ornaments that are collected over years. I have one that was given to me by the secretary at the first place I ever worked when I was in high school. And because she gave me that for Christmas, all the way up to all the ones my mom gave my boys. They're important, and photographs of them, because at some point that's going to be my kids' problem, because we have like a 12-foot tree, and it's almost like we're having a hard time finding places to hang them. But I've taken pictures of them when we add new ones, and that'll be something that I'll spend some time putting them together, and I'll put them in an album. I'll just have an album called Our Christmas Stories, and I'm talking digital albums, because I'm not necessarily, I am still a scrapbooker. I'm still making some digital albums, but I'm not going to make albums of absolutely everything, because that just makes more stuff. if I print them off, but I'm going to make digital ones so people where the stories were. And so to tell the stories, and most of them I still remember, which is why I need to do that. And there's a interview with me on Marty's podcast there on her website where I tell the story about a ship in a bottle. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story because you could go watch the recording of it, but that ship in a bottle, when I had to take a picture with me of holding it up for Marty to use on our website. So I got my son to take a picture of it. And then he goes, well, what are we doing? And why are we doing this? So I explained the whole thing and I told the story. He goes, well, what's the story? So I told him the story and he goes, I never knew that. I always wondered where that came from. And it's quite significant. It has historical value. It has family value. So that's the importance, I think, of telling the stories behind things. And I would rather have some important photos with the stories attached than every single photo that was ever taken sitting all in folders, all organized with the right metadata on it. I think what people are going to keep, what people are going to look for is those stories because it's the legacy that they want, as opposed to a bunch of stories. And it helps do with this whole downsizing thing because, well, I think pretty much all over the world, the day of people living in big houses where we have lots of room to store all this stuff is dwindling. Like my kids are probably never going to ever own a house as big as this one they grew up in. Oh, I talked about it in another call. Cool. So Barbara just said she interviewed me too, and I told the same story. Yikes. I got to find some more objects to tell stories about. Good thing I didn't tell it today. But it's so important. And I think particularly if you can record a couple, which is sometimes faster than trying to write and type, record a few stories. And I'm going to add those podcasts because I'm pretty sure I can download them. I'm going to add those to the legacy album because then that'll also give someone, because to me, if I had my mom telling the story, that would be priceless. If I had my grandfather, who the ship actually belonged to originally, telling the story, which granted he probably wouldn't have done because he didn't like to talk too much about that, but that would just be a priceless thing. So what's the next best thing? Me telling the story. You guys telling your stories and telling the stories that you remember so that people have those stories. So
you made we have a family reunion of sorts coming up this summer where my brother and his wife are celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary, and all of us are going to be there. And I'm thinking about ways that we can get past the social aspects of telling those stories, because you want to tell a story when you're actually looking at somebody, but we want to capture the recording. And it's at a certain age, it's okay to admit you want to capture the recording. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's kind of like a rain stick, as you pass around the stick for telling a story, but somebody is the official videographer, for example, and then you wind up the storyteller and let them agree ahead of time they're going to tell her story. But you've got somehow socially, it's okay that you've got one person just sort of casually with a camera. I don't know what that method is.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about it for this summer as a way to do that. Not a big lights, not a special place to sit, not, none of that. Just passing it around and grab the camera and start recording.
And I don't think you need, there's lots of places you could pay a lot of money to who will come in and script it and bring the lights and the cameras so you can tell a story. But that then becomes something either A, that you need the money to do, or B, that becomes another big thing that doesn't ever get done.
Right now we've got these cameras.
Yeah. We all own a camera. We all have a camera. Mine's right here. I have a video.
They're great. Exactly.
I have a recording. I can record voice with this. You don't need a bunch of fancy stuff. You can just, and I think I mentioned this to Barbara before. I had a bunch of my tapes from when my kids were young, digitized, and things in there that I had no idea anybody was even videotape. I didn't videotape them. Somebody else had as my camera. But one of them was one of my kids' birthdays, and it was the candles blowing out is what was being videotaped. But in the background, you can hear my mom and her sister chatting about. Rhoda goes, Joyce, are you gonna have a piece of cake? And Mom goes, yeah, I'm thinking about it. But it was them. It was just and to hear their voices again was so valuable, that I think anything that you do for your family, for anyone, even if you don't have a family, record something for museums about, because they're looking for stories told by the people who experienced them. So, wow, we filled an hour again. Holy crow.
How does that happen?
Stop. Do you have any questions? Anyone who's on mute, do you have any questions? You can type them if you don't want to come off mute. Are you overwhelmed?
I think I'm from the era before a lot of this stuff. I don't have a video camera. I don't have any of those kind of, my kids were all before, my two kids were before this, and I don't have this kind of stuff at all.
And I think that's too, it's a function of a number of things, is the time, but also, how can I say this politely, economic status. We did not have a video camera when I grew up. Nobody in our family did. Like, all we have is pictures. There's no video. We had a video camera when my kids grew up, yet what some of my clients had, their original stuff is on the old reel-to-reel film reels, because they had movie cameras, and then they had the Super 8 tapes. So there is visual recordings done of different events. A lot of them don't even have sound. They're just video, like it's just like a bunch of moving pictures. But that is indeed, I think, representative of, to a degree, the families and what was important to them. And also that one of my clients that has so much stuff, the father, he took photos as a hobby and developed his own photos. So there's lots of stuff. But for me, there's not a whole lot back from when I was a kid. Other than I was lucky too, because I had an uncle who dabbled in photography. So there are pictures that he took. But it's true. Like, I have clients who go, I don't know what to do with 40 carousels of slides. And I go, easy for me. I've only got 6. Not 6 carousels. I got 6 slides, because we had Kodak Instamatics and those kind of the old brownie cameras that you didn't do a whole lot of high-level photography. You were just taking snapshots.
Yeah.
So,
I have my mom's collection. My grandfather was an amazing amateur photographer and of means. So that's where the huge Ponga collection of photos came from.
Yeah.
But, my parents divorced when I was very little. There are no pictures of me with my dad. 0, because she just purged them. And, that's sad, but in some ways, the fact that there aren't any is itself part of the story, and that's, I'm settled with that at this point. It becomes part of the story, and it does create its own curiosity and its own part of the story to pursue. Always interesting. Always interesting.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that, and this is something where you might want to check out Karen Ray. She also has a really good newsletter. I finally signed up for a newsletter because I found some old email. And I went, oh yeah, I was going to do that. She does a lot about memoir writing, but she also has a ton of great stuff in her newsletters, because I'm thinking about exactly that, Barbara. What are their stories that are important that I don't have pictures of, that I don't have anything? And it clued me. I was thinking about one of my aunts when you mentioned that your colleague was one of the first female of her position. And I have an aunt who was one of the very first female bank managers in Western Canada. But I don't have any pictures of her at work. I was a kid. So, but I'm thinking, you know what? I need to download a picture of that bank, because I should be able to find it on Google and then tell that story, because that's an important story.
Yeah, it is amazing what you can find on the web these days. Yeah. And thank you for mentioning Karen again. I've been poking at her to maybe join us for one of these things, and she's getting a few shout outs, so I think we're going to find that. She's a Project Kin member too.
Yeah. So.
Well, maybe that's a good place to wrap. I want to thank everyone, as always, for joining us for these wonderful, fun events, and especially the Kathy's Corner, the cornerstone of Project Kin. And these are always, thank you, Derek. It's lovely to see you joining us. And we are always thrilled to see new members. We try hard not to pick on you and call you out to join and say something, but just know you're always welcome to jump on into any part of the conversation. And we look forward to seeing you participating in the chat in Substack. There is a whole section just about using Substack, because you're not the only one to be confused. If you go to https://projectkin, I can't type, projectkin.org/Substack. Made it even easier. That takes you to a whole section I have, I think, about using Project Kin and Substack, using the tools to do what we do, and yeah, it does.
And because you can't break it.
That's right. You can't break it. That's a very good point.
Barbara might be able to, but we can't.
And it takes a professional to break these things. So again, thank you all for joining us. We have a very exciting week of stuff coming up next week. I am holding myself back not to overpost. So let me just apologize up front, because I will overpost. I have, I just sent an email out yesterday with yesterday's recording from our monthly Atlantic project clinic. I'll get this one out later today. I'm going to hold on to myself for a few hours after that. And so the next one's out next week, Tuesday, after our project clinic. And then we go into a battering ram of excitement for Roots Tech. I promise not to post more than once a day via email, but I don't know any other way to do this. It will be daily during Roots Tech. Just please don't unsubscribe just for that. And I'm hoping it's all full of good stuff, fun stuff that you can watch later, if not participate at the time. All of our events, as always, are recorded. And one of the things that I haven't talked about is our new Members Corner. And right here we have one of our participants Marcy will be joining us as one of our guest writers for the Members Corner. It's a special thing I'm setting up for members only and announcing it at Roots Tech, for which our members are able to author their posts without having to fool around to create their own Substack. You just send me the copy, and frankly, it can be in Word, in a couple of JPEGs, whatever works. I'm your editor, I'm your publisher. I hit the button and they all appear together. I'm doing a razzmatazz for all of the writers in social media, and a whole little song and dance to celebrate it, because I think it's a really cool thing. I really sincerely do. And I'm very, very proud of how it's all coming together as a community. And exactly the reason this is such a big deal right now is this annual Roots Tech conference, which is only done once a year. The Family Search, which is the host for the event, makes a big deal about it being in Salt Lake City, which it is. But you know what? They have like 3 million participants. About maybe 60,000 or something are in Salt Lake. The rest of us are online saying, hey, what are they doing? What are they doing? So, thousands of courses and programs are on site at the time. And then once you have your account, you can watch, you have a full year to watch them anyway. Yeah. So we're part of that content. And I'm hoping and delighted by many of the conversations we have scheduled during Roots Tech, 2 per day, that we'll have a lot of conversations about what people are seeing. And the whole idea is we're all doing this together remotely. So let's talk to each other, see what you see. All right. So thank you all. And I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Take care now. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kathy. See you, Marcy.